So that's what we're gonna cover today. Before we get started, it's a little bit about me. I am currently the head of customer success customer at Elevate Security. As I said, I've been doing this and I've been in tech for 5 years. Before that, I was in sort of nonprofit and for-profit world. And I currently live in Oakland with my husband and probably too many houseplants. That has definitely been one of my COVID activities, is just acquiring and surrounding myself with more plants. So let's dive in. So what is customer success? So some of you may already know this, but some of you may be asking. This is a relatively new position. You really started seeing customer success jobs and titles probably about 7 years ago. And really, this is sort of the academic version of it, and I'll show you kind of my interpretation. But really what this role is for is to help companies anticipate what challenges their customers may have and have a team that's job it is to proactively provide solutions for them. And really customers help, I mean, it's kind of in the name, but we help boost our customer happiness. We focus on making sure our customers are retained at the business. And we're really one of the main drivers of increased revenue and customer loyalty. So that's a lot of sort of jargon. When I tell people what customer success is, I kind of break it down into these three things. 50% of it is problem solving. So figuring out our customer wants to have this be our solution. How do we get the customer to that solution? The customer wants us to do something that our product can't do right now. How do we figure that out? Or our customers keep asking for this. How can we partner with engineering and product to get that into the product? It's kind of part of the problem solving. I personally find this part the most fun. And I think it is very applicable for a variety of different previous backgrounds. Any type of problem solving it can be beneficial for this job. And then the next big sparse of time is relationship building and understanding the customer challenges. So we are really the person that works most directly with a customer. So if you think about this, for example, say your company buys Salesforce or GitHub or any of those tools, there is actually a person at Salesforce and GitHub whose job it is to make sure that your company or your organization, when they implement that product, that it is successful. They're responsible for making sure you have a smooth implementation, making sure if you have any bugs or issues, they get fixed. This is really that part of the relationship building, and they are responsible for building that relationship with whoever the customer may be. So for GitHub, for example, it could be building that relationship with that VP of engineering. If it's Salesforce, it could be a VP of sales. So really kind of fostering and nurturing that relationship, both in terms of the functionality of your product, but also just human to human relationships. And the last piece is sales. Really any type of sales experience works here, whether it's selling Girl Scout cookies or, just working at a restaurant or working in retail. Those are all great. You're in sales in all those jobs. So that type of experience is super applicable. So when we think about it, it's a little bit problem solving, a little bit relationship building, and a little bit sales. So then let's talk about what stage company has CSMs, or customer success managers. So you may be thinking, okay, I want to break into tech, but I'm not sure if I want to work at a small company or a medium company or a big company. The good news is if you want to be in customer success, you can find that role at pretty much every single tech company. And we'll dive in a little bit more about that in a second. But all companies have customer success. A lot of companies have customer success managers. And really the only difference to think about is depending on how big the company is, it might be a more specialized role. You might just be focused on one part of what I'm going to explain today. You might be focused only on getting customers to renew, or you might be focused only on support. But at the early stage companies, the exciting part is, and that's kind of where I'm at Elevate, we have 35 people, we're pretty small. We really get to do all sorts of different things, and we're going to kind of talk about what those things are here. And I skipped a slide. So what type of companies have CSMs? There are really, when we think about tech companies, there are kind of two buckets of tech companies. Many of you probably know this, but B2B companies or business to business companies. And these are companies that sell software or products to other companies. And so the biggest example, if you live in the Bay Area, because you see the tower probably, is Salesforce. So these are companies that their customers are other businesses. And this is a really almost all B2B companies now have customer success managers managing their customer relationships. And the bulk of my experience comes in the B2B space. So I'm going to touch really briefly here on the other option, but for the most part today, I'm going to be talking about working at B2B companies, because based on my experience, I've found that these are the companies where you get exposed to a lot of different things that allow you to kind of bridge into other technology roles that you may be interested in. It's sometimes, I think it's just easier to do that at B2B companies because the scope of the customer success role is much larger. There are, and you will see if you're like searching on LinkedIn or job searching, you will see customer success managers that are working at business to consumer companies or B2C companies. So for example, if you go on LinkedIn right now, you can probably find jobs, or wherever you look for jobs, you can find jobs for customer success managers at Yelp. You can find them at, any other consumer facing product that you can think of, HelloFresh, Uber, Lyft, whatever it may be. When you're in these roles, it's a little bit closer to customer support. So it's much more interacting with individual employees individual users and what their issues may be. So it's much more of closer to a support role than what we'll talk about here, which is customer success, which is a lot more, can be more strategic. And it also has you working with very large enterprises as opposed to just individual consumers who are having sort of one-off problems and issues. So you'll see this title on both of these types of organizations. But what I'm going to focus on today, and what I would encourage all of you, if you are interested in this role, to really look for, is companies in the B2B space. Okay. So as I said, it's kind of out of order. I apologize. There are CSMs at all stage companies. It really depends on what you want to do. If you're thinking about breaking into tech, if this is your first role in tech, or you may have had a role in marketing or some other function before, and you want to make that jump to something maybe closer to product or a little bit more technical, it is really great to start at a smaller company where the scope of the customer success role is quite large. So that's just a little piece of advice. I'll provide my contact information at the end of this presentation. So feel free to ask, or even in the questions as well, specific questions about specific companies. But as a general rule, the larger the company, the more specialized the customer success role is for one of just a few functions that I'm going to talk about today. So to give you a sense of what does this role actually do? What are the roles and responsibilities? So most customer success managers are responsible for customer happiness, so keeping customers happy, driving customers to achieving their success metrics. So what are the things the customer, when they bought the product, what did they want the product to do for their business? So making sure we hit all those check marks, and then also renewing the customer, so retaining that business. So I'm going to walk you through what kind of a typical day looks like. I spent some time looking through a few folks on my team's calendars over the last few weeks to kind of pull this together, but hopefully this will give you a sense of the scope of the role at a smaller company. So most of my team, and my day starts like this too, is I check my email from customers to triage any urgent issues. The exciting part about working at a B2B company is you probably have customers all over North America, but you likely have them all over the world. So we spend our days kind of getting caught up on what was going on in Australia, see what's happening in Europe before, some of our counterparts get online here in the States. And then a lot of my days consist of leading customer calls. So for those of you who have been anything from tour guides to you've been a leader of like a student group, or you have any sort of public speaking experience, this is kind of what we pull on for customer success. So you kind of show up, you lead the meeting, you talk to customers about what they need to do to be successful. You talk to them about different problems that are happening in their business that you think you can help solve, and you educate them on your product and its changes. So these meetings are a lot of conversation. You learn a lot about the product. You get pretty, depending on the company, pretty technical. So today, for example, I had a pretty in-depth conversation with a customer about APIs and various processes that we can use to transfer data. So you can have customer calls like that, or you can have customer calls that are very high level and not technical at all. But this is a huge part of the process, is leading those calls and ensuring that our customers are on the right track. And then we, just like any job, we got some follow-ups, we got to do some things, we got to align with our implementations teams to make sure, our implementations are on track. And for us, what implementation means is when you buy a piece of software, it may take time to ensure that that software is ready to use in your specific company environment. So our team works with customers, and our implementations work with customers to make sure that our product is up and running in their environment. It's customized or configured to their environment. That's all part of an implementation. And then it's pretty typical that a few days a week, we end up talking to our product team. So if you're interested in product management or design, this is a great way to see kind of what those roles actually do. So for example, I spent a bunch of time last week talking to our product managers about some functionality that we've been hearing from customers, some needs that have been bubbling up that we've been thinking about doing. And so my team and I are kind of you're on the front lines as a CSM to what your customers want and need. So you're a really important asset to the product team. And so you get to kind of be involved in sort of storyboarding, design iterations. All of that work is really also an exciting part of what we get to contribute to. And then as our day, our fantastic day goes on here, we kind of, one of the things we do is have renewal strategy calls. So for example, CSM is responsible for negotiating our renewal contracts. So right now I have two gentlemen on my team who are in the throes of renewing some big contracts. And so we'll sit down and talk through, okay, how much do we want to charge the customer this year? What can we add to the customer's contract? And if you don't have experience with renewals, that does not mean you can't be a CSM. It's just a skill that you're going to gain. And you probably actually do have the skill of negotiating even in your personal life to get what you may want out of a situation. If you have siblings, you're probably a pretty good negotiator. So you can pull on those skills that you already have to really do this well. Don't feel intimidated if you've never done this before to just be like, oh, I'm not going to apply for that job. This is a skill that you can and have to learn, and managers totally understand that. And then we talk, this is another, in the afternoon, you might talk to another customer, see what's going on with them. It may be a customer that you've had for a while. And so you're more focused on how can we make this customer an advocate for our business? How can we get them to do a video or a testimonial? So it really depends, different customers at different stages of how you interact with them. And then another part that we always do, this happened to me today, is we sometimes just have technical support issues. So if you are interested in, maybe you've taken a class in Python or Java, or you have taken a SQL class and you're interested in kind of getting some opportunities to kind of test out that nitty gritty part of your skills and those engineering skills, we do get to do that. We do some technical support, particularly here at Elevate Security. We have our CSMs doing that. And so you get an opportunity to work directly with the engineering team and really sort of troubleshoot some of these issues, and also help learn how our database is actually structured, how is a product built, what do different coding languages actually mean. Really good opportunity for you to see all of that. And if you already have some of those skills, you'll be a really big asset to an organization. So we always spend some time doing technical support. Some of us really like it, some of us don't, but it is part of the job. And then let's just say in the afternoon, you're catching up on requests, you're doing some little things here and there, preparing for upcoming meetings, making sure you're ready to really keep our customers happy and be the advocates for them internally. And I talk to my team pretty frequently, but it's often that I sit with my team and I say to them, what did you learn today about, or what did you learn this week about our customers? And that really does inform our product roadmap. So again, an opportunity for you to see and learn, how does a product roadmap get made? How do things get added to the roadmap? How do product managers kind of do that? And then a lot of what we learn also goes into our sales strategy. So you may find, if you become a customer success manager, that you really like selling, and that's just who you are and you're really good at it. You do kind of get to tease that out. And then, at the end of each of our days, we kind of look ahead for tomorrow. But it's pretty common that I get to touch every team across my company in a given week. And that's really, I think, an incredible opportunity. When I first started in customer success, I could not have told you what a JSON was. I could not have told you what a wireframe was. I didn't know really anything about technology. You all are way ahead of me in that regard. but I was able to get a really good crash course on what do all these different components of an organization do, and how does a business actually work? How do companies make money? How do they retain their revenue? You will get sort of a great 101 on all of those things as joining a company as sort of a customer success manager. So I've touched on this a little bit, but what are the career paths for CSM? So I put a few here on the screen. I've worked with customer success managers and had friends and colleagues who have gone into all these roles. They've spent a year or two in customer success, and they've really decided, you know what, I love the product part. I love designing products. I love getting feedback from customers. I love user testing. And they've gone into project and product manager roles. Or they may decide, you know, I really like the more technical the project management part of it. I like making sure things are on time, that it gets delivered to a spec. So they may become implementation managers. They may move into technical support. They really love that like nitty gritty problem solving, bug finding, bug chasing part of the work. And so they may move into technical support. And then we have folks who just love talking about our product and talking to customers, and they may go into marketing. So there's really a bunch of different things that you can do if you become a CSM. You are also more than welcome to stay a CSM for your entire career. There's definitely a career path there to grow and manage and lead and build teams. But this is one of those roles that I often see people use it as a jumping off point to some other roles, technical or not, in sort of the general tech space. So yeah, I think this is a great way to get exposed to a lot of different things. It's also a great way if you're not quite sure what you want to do or what you want to double down on in terms of your skill sets. This is a great way to learn and test out, you know, do I like product? Do I like these things? It's a great starter role, not necessarily a starter in your career. You can join customer success at any time in your career, but a great starter role into the technology space. So now sort of the big question is, how do I break into customer success? So the great news is customer success is an incredibly rapidly growing field. You'll see, if you look on any sort of job site, you will start to see this role, and you'll start to see it even now in nonprofits, and other organizations are starting to use this title as well. But you'll kind of see this everywhere. And you may also see, you know, account managers. That sometimes means the same thing as customer success. Oftentimes, if it says account manager instead of customer success, it's normally a job that's more focused on renewals. So if you're really looking to learn to interact more with product and engineering and other parts of the business, you probably would rather go with a company where the title is customer success than account manager. So I'd keep an eye out for that. But there's a couple different ways to break into customer success. So one is because customer success is a new profession, there are a lot of people who want to share their knowledge, and they're excited. They want to get more people into customer success. They want to learn from other customer success managers. And so the meetup scene here is really is quite good. So if you live in the Bay Area, which I know not all of you do, there is a really great San Francisco customer success meetup. There's a San Jose one, there's an East Bay one. I know for a fact there's a really good one in like Boston and Seattle. I have a friend who's really involved in the Indianapolis one. Pretty much every city has one of these meetups. They're a great place for you to go, even if you're just thinking about customer success, to meet other people in the job so you can talk to more people. And also they normally have some great topics to just help you learn about, okay, what is this role? So it's even worth kind of looking and seeing what some of their previous events have been to start to get a sense of, oh yeah, that seems interesting to me or not. So Meetup is definitely one that I would encourage you to use, and one that I've used to go out and find candidates. Another one is Slack. I know that Tech by Choice has a great Slack channel. If you haven't joined it, you should. But there's also quite a few customer success Slack channels. There's a large one run by Gainsight. And Gainsight is a company that sells customer success software. If you have interest in Slack as the way you consume information, feel free to message me and I'll invite you to that group. But that has a global it's a global group of folks, and there's lots of people in there asking questions about how to build customer success teams, how to do certain things in customer success better. There's a pretty active job board in there too. And so there are some great Slack groups, and I'm happy, I'll send I think we'll send a follow-up as part of this, and I can send some over that are some good ones for you to join if that's how you consume information. And then for LinkedIn, I would say there are a bunch of customer success groups there as well. There are also a lot of great folks on LinkedIn in customer success roles that you can message, and they'll reach out to you, because again, customer success is growing so much. It's very often that folks who have been in customer success for a few years are hiring. And so we're kind of constantly looking for people. So it's great to reach out to people and connect with them there. And the last piece that I didn't put on this slide is really another place to learn more about customer success is podcasts. There's a couple good podcasts about customer success, and the hosts and guests of those are great people for you to reach out to. If you listen to one of those podcasts and someone's talking about customer success, just connect with that person on LinkedIn and tell them, you listen to that podcast and you're kind of new to the field and you'd love for, to hear a little bit more about their story for 10 or 15 minutes. That's definitely something also that's available to you. And again, a lot of customer success people are like myself, and they're pretty chatty and extroverted. So this is one where it is a little bit easier than some other roles to get people on the phone with you and get them to start building those relationships to break into the field. And I know one of the things that I wanted to talk about is how to showcase your experience. So we talked about problem solving in the beginning, but a lot of problem solving is being creative. And one of the first things to be creative on is applying your previous experience to customer success. So as I'm sure many of you have gotten job advice before, but what I really love doing when I'm applying for customer success roles is really looking and seeing, okay, what does that job description say, and what are the types of things they're asking for? And then how do I creatively add my experience? One of the things that's great about the customer success role is it is not just a checklist of, are these the skills I have, or are these the languages I know, or is this the degrees that I have from specific universities? Customer success is a much more inclusive field in terms of what people's previous experience has been. So feel free to get pretty creative. These are some examples of experience that I've had myself, or I've seen other really great CSMs have, that they've talked about in their interviews or their process. So if being a customer success manager is interesting to you, no experience in any of these is too small. I've seen really great folks come out of like retail and hospitality experience. You're talking to people all the time. You're trying to make those customers happy, and you're trying to retain those customers. You're doing the things that customer success managers are already doing, just in a smaller way. So you can really speak to this type of experience when you're applying for a customer success job. Maybe you've done technical support. This could be something small or big. Anyone who's been in support is, I think, one of the more difficult jobs in terms of just being able to get up every day and keep going and having such a positive attitude when you're often on a negative interaction. So I think if you have these experiences, this really showcases your resiliency. This showcases your ability to keep going and to be creative in your problem solving. So feel free to share those experiences. Is super valuable. Any type of comms experience that you may have. So this may be, you've been a radio DJ, you've done your own podcast, you were a public speaker for some organization you were involved in. You've done a bunch of communications work in previous jobs. These are great skills to showcase as well. Spend a lot of my time writing emails or talking on the phone. So any type of communications experience that you have is great. Another great folks who have been executive assistants or EAs before are also make great customer success managers as well, because they know how to navigate really tricky situations. They have excellent customers like support, and they're creative individuals. So again, so many different types of experiences that you can have had previous to this that can really lead into customer success for you. So really don't be intimidated and feel like you have to have a lot of technology experience or you have to have a lot of deep sort of technical know-how, customer success is a great bridge role for you, for anyone. I would say the main things are you just have to like solving problems. You have to really like getting into the weeds on stuff and really thinking through, how can I make this customer successful? How can I ensure that they're getting the most value out of our product? And really having just a genuine interest in other people. We do a lot of relationship building. We learn about, excuse me, our customers' kids and their hobbies and their interests and so many other things. So having just a curiosity to learn about other people's experience, and an openness to kind of build relationships with people that you may not normally come in contact with, are also great sort of things to look for in this job as you kind of come through that. So I think, yeah, I have plenty of time for questions, and happy to answer things big or small that you may have about the role or the field or anything else that I can answer. Okay, great. I see someone asked a good question. Would you hire someone starting from the place you did as someone not familiar with JSON, etc.? That is a great question. Totally. Yes. I would definitely do this. I think so. Our product here at Elevate has some technical components to it, but it is not so technical that you can't learn. I think the biggest thing that I ask in my interviews, and I think would be super important for someone to showcase if they feel like they're in this place, is what is your aptitude for learning? How, and I ask this but in my interviews, but like, what are some things that you've learned quickly? Or if you don't know something, how do you go about learning it? And so I think that willingness to learn is more important to me than your technical skills. I fundamentally believe a lot of people are really great learners, and it's just a matter that they haven't been exposed to the whatever technical nitty gritty thing we need to do. It's not a matter of they can't. So don't be intimidated. And I would totally hire someone without that experience, and definitely have done that even at Elevate. What is the salary range like? Great question. So it really varies depending on where you're at in the country. But we here in the Bay Area, we see that we have people probably starting in CS anywhere, depending on the company and what stage they're at from funding, anywhere between the 70 and the 110 number. If you have a lot of experience, even if it's not, and it's not specifically in customer success, it may be higher than that. But that is kind of what the Bay Area salary range is. If you have other specific places in the country that you're in that aren't here in the Bay Area, I would strongly encourage you to use Glassdoor. Customer success managers seem to use it a lot to talk about their employers, or feel free to reach out to me and I can kind of give you a good gut check. But that's sort of where I see it here in the Bay Area, again, depending on the size of the company, but that's a great question. Vanessa, great question. Are you seeing any particular trends in hiring for customer success during the current COVID crisis? Has hiring slowed? Are CSM roles still in demand? What a great question. The biggest trend that I'm seeing in customer success hiring during COVID is and I think this is true of many roles, but an increased openness for folks to be remote. So one of the things that I didn't touch on maybe as much as I should is sometimes in non-COVID times, we do travel. So you are sometimes traveling to the client to meet with them in person. And so sometimes in non-COVID times, it's made a little bit more sense for people to be located in a region where their customers also are. I'm seeing that less and less, and I'm really excited by that because there are a lot of people who can be really great customer success managers who don't live in the Bay Area. And I think a lot of companies have avoided hiring outside the Bay Area, and I'm excited to see that. I haven't seen hiring slow, which is great. CSM roles are definitely still in demand, if not more than ever, because if you think one of the roles here for you is to retain the business. And so it's now sales is much harder than pre-COVID, but it's always important to keep our customers happy. And so I've actually seen that we've pretty much kept the same, if not more, depending on the business you're in. But yeah, I've been excited to not see there be a dip in hiring in this role. Great question. Feel
before we jump into the next question, I think this was a really great talk and we're getting a lot of engagement, so we can really tell that people are interested. I want to go ahead and start our poll just to get some feedback. And as people are filling that out, we can go ahead and answer that next question. I'm sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to get this out there and going.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Great. Another question. Is there a certain time period where you can use some experience from side project and hobbies? For example, I used to be an admin for a message board community some 10 years ago. Would that count to add on your resume? I would say definitely yes. I know we have a tendency now to to focus really heavily on maybe the last few jobs that we've had. But if you're making a career change and you're moving into customer success and you haven't been in that role before, feel free to call on things from quite a while ago. I have no I think that actually shows that you've been doing this for a while, you've had this skill for a while, and you've been applying it for a while. So don't hesitate to use those previous projects and hobbies. And those are great things to call out in your interview examples as well. So yeah, that's a great question, but I don't really have a time period for side projects and hobbies. If they're relevant to the role, I do bring them up because I find that it just gives me as a hiring manager a more rounded view of you as a candidate. How have people disqualified themselves as a candidate for this role when you interviewed them? That's a great question. So I think I can think of this happening only a few times, but the biggest disqualification I see is folks who either through their answers in the questions, and sometimes we might do, a small case study. So we'll run through some examples and ask them how they would respond to the customer. Sometimes when I see that, the disqualification I see there is folks who don't have the ability to be flexible. So one of the hard parts about this job is, when you work at a technology company, your product is always changing, your sales messaging may be changing, there are always things changing, and the ability to learn quickly and be flexible. So when I have candidates who don't have the ability to do that or communicate a discomfort with sort of expedient change, that can sometimes be a disqualifier. I would say that's probably the main one. The other thing that you have to do a lot in this role, as you kind of saw by that schedule of the day, is do a lot of prioritization. You may have more than the amount of things that you can reasonably do on your plate, and that's okay. And so you need to decide which 5 things you're going to do and which 5 things you're not going to do. And so sometimes when I run through exercises with candidates, if they have a great hesitancy to say what they will and won't do, that can sometimes also be a disqualifier. That's a really, really thoughtful question. Thank you for asking that. Can you give us some examples of podcasts we can check out? Are there any meetups you recommend in New York City? Yes, I can definitely. I'm going to pull up live as we talk my podcasting app so I can tell you some good ones that I've been listening to. So a bunch of the big companies the big customer success companies have one. So one is just called the Customer Success Channel. It's hosted by a customer success company. So again, that's the Customer Success Channel. And I can also send these over to the Tech by Choice team so they have them for a follow-up. Let me look at some other ones. There's another one called Strike Deck Radio. They interview a lot of customer success managers across the field. So that is a good one. And then let me see. There's another one called the CX Leader Podcast. That one, it's more hit or miss, but it still has some good things in there. So I would definitely check a few of those out. And again, I'll send those over to the Tech by Choice team. And any meetups you recommend in New York? I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure there's likely a customer success meetup in New York. And I also know at least one person in customer success in New York. So feel free. I'm going to show you guys how to get a hold of me. Feel free to reach out to me and I can put you in touch with her. What are the parts about your role that you don't like? What are the biggest challenges? That's a great question. I think the part of my role that I don't like is sometimes what sometimes there's certain things that we have to do that are very repetitive. This isn't all of our time, but when you think about it, the more customers you have, sometimes you have to have the same conversations over and over with the same people, which can get a bit draining depending on what type of personality you have. But for me, that's been one of the parts of the role that isn't as fun. The way that I've sort of countered that is that I've worked for companies that are changing a lot. And so I never have to have the same conversation for too long of any period of time. But that's definitely one of that. And in terms of what are the biggest challenges, I think one of the biggest challenges for me when I first got into customer success, and occasionally will flare up every once in a while, is just the ability to the feeling comfortable working in a technology space when I'm not a super technologically savvy person. Feel like I've beefed up a lot on my knowledge over the last 5 years, but that was definitely something I felt in the beginning, which was kind of a discomfort or a challenge around, do I know enough about how our product works, or do I know enough about the industry that we're selling to? And I had some definitely like imposter syndrome around that. And I think for me, I just focused on working for companies and in industries that genuinely interested me. So when I took the time to learn about them, it wasn't a huge burden for me. But I think that can sometimes be a challenge, particularly if you're working with engineers and product a lot and you might not feel as comfortable in the space. But there are definitely ways to feel comfortable. But for me, that was one of the biggest challenges when I first started, was just feeling confident in myself to say, you know what, I know the value that I add to this company and I can't answer every question, and that's okay. And being comfortable with that was a challenge for me in the beginning. And probably, if I'm really honest with myself, continues to be one that I think about. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of really thoughtful questions. I'll definitely stay on here for a few more minutes in case anyone does, something else strikes them. But really, first of all, thank you so much, Tech by Choice team, for inviting me to have this conversation today. And thank you all for being such active participants. And really, this does not need to be the end of our conversation. Feel free to continue this conversation. I put here my LinkedIn. I don't know how I got this, but I'm Megan M. Caldwell on LinkedIn. And here's my email address as well, my Gmail. Please feel free to connect with me, to reach out with me. If you have questions about certain roles, if you see I'm connected to someone that you find interesting, please do to reach out to me. I try to make a conscious effort to share of my network, and my only request, if you do reach out to me or we spend some time chatting, is that you pay that forward. I really would like to get to know all of you. So please don't hesitate to reach out and continue this. I'm excited to learn all the things that you all are interested in. Oh, and I just saw that I did not scroll down, so there's a few more questions. Are your days very long? How do you deal with work-life balance? Good question. It really depends. Some weeks my days are not very long at all, and other weeks they can be longer than I would like them to be. I think for me, the way I deal with work-life balance is just setting really clear expectations and boundaries with my organization when I start, and also with myself. So one of the things I try to do is get out during the middle of the day and go for a walk. I try not to let my work bleed in to the evening hours. So the time I like to spend with my husband and the other people in my life are important. So for me, I just had to set really clear boundaries. And I felt really empowered to do that because of the manager that I had. So when you're interviewing, it's really important that you ask this question. One of the ways that I ask this question without asking people what their work-life balance is like is I ask the manager what their hobbies are outside of work. And if they can't think of anything, that's a red flag for me. So I've used that question, and that's really helped me see, okay, what is the real work-life balance there? So I would encourage you to ask that, because there are going to be customer success jobs that are very demanding, and that may or may not be something that you want to do. So do use that question to ask. Can you walk us through a typical interview for a CSM role? Of course. So typical interview for a CSM role, you'll probably do a phone screen ahead of time with the hiring manager. If it's a larger company, that will be with a recruiter. That's really, are you a culture fit? Do you have good communication skills? Can you speak on your feet? Pretty high level. And then here at Elevate, we do another meeting with probably myself or someone on my team. That's kind of a resume review. It's more just learning about your specific experience and your skill set. But when we bring you on site, we kind of break you up into a few different cohorts. So we do a case study. And what we do for our case study, and this is pretty typical of many CSM jobs, is we give you a couple customer examples. We give you a situation that has intentionally limited information about the customer. And we say, what would you do in this situation? How would you solve this problem? And we do some role playing. We kind of walk you through that. And most companies will give you the case study in advance, so you have some time on your own, or they'll block time during the interview for you to have some time to think. So there is a case study component. And really what I'm looking for there is, does this person ask good questions? Because you don't have all the information, and that's totally fine. Are you comfortable with asking questions? Are you comfortable thinking on your feet? Those are some of the things I'm asking. And then we normally have an interview that's specific to kind of more, how technical are you? How comfortable are you with technology? And my implementation manager, who I think maybe on this call, Tiana, she normally helps me with that. And what she's really looking for there is, how can you learn our technology? So to the previous comment, are you able to learn quickly? So we have that, like, how quickly can this person learn? How well can they interact with customers? And then the last piece is really around, are they a good representative of our business? Do they align with our values? Because oftentimes our customers, the only person they talk to is you. So we need to make sure that you align with what the values that the company stands for, and that we know you're going to be a good representative of who we are. And those interviews normally are about 4 hours on site. And that's typically what most CSM interviews have looked like that I've participated in, or know that others have. How do you manage the potential condensation from the more technical departments of a company? This is a great question. I manage this by, I'm going to try to say something that doesn't sound snarky. I manage this by showing how myself and my team drive value. So a huge part of your job as the customer success manager is making customers successful. You know, potentially more than anyone in the company, except maybe product, what your customer needs. You talk to them all the time. You have an asymmetry of information about the customer. I find that at companies with healthy tech culture, with healthy cultures, that they really do, your colleagues in engineering and product really do value the insight that you get. And in many cases, the only time they can get that insight is via you. So I find that when you showcase your abilities to problem solve, and you showcase your ability to kind of get valuable information from the customer, this sort of goes away. There's always some sort of snark here. And what I've tried to do is kind of figure out exactly how much technology knowledge I really need to know how to be successful, and not beat myself up for not knowing things that there's absolutely no possible way I could know. And communicating that with the team, saying, like, I'm willing to learn a lot about how databases are structured, because I think that's foundational for what I do, but I am never going to learn Python, because I just can't and won't. And just being really clear about that with your team. But that's a great question. I think there are some pretty toxic cultures out there in which this is a big problem. I'm lucky to be at one where it isn't. But I would encourage you to try to assess that out in an interview too, to see kind of what is the relationship the customer success team may have with product and engineering and other teams. Great. Well, again, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you again, Tech by Choice, for hosting this and for all the other content you provide and the community you provide. Please do join their Slack channel. It's great. And I look forward to connecting with many of you after this.
And real quick, Megan, there's one more question just came in.
Do you find there are more women, queer folks in this role than other roles? Yes, 100%. I would definitely agree with the statement. I think that it is just because it doesn't require a very specific technical path to get to it. It is a more inclusive space. And I also find, for good and bad, that this is commonly one of the roles that women or queer folks have in leadership. So often when you look at a company, if they only have a few women or queer leaders in the company, this is traditionally one of the roles that is filled by someone who identifies in that way. So yes, I would say there are definitely more women and queer folks in this than potentially other roles in tech. It's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
Well, again, Megan, thank you so much for putting this session together for us. And a big thank you for the Elevate team for reaching out and offering to do this workshop. It's been really great. It's been very engaging. I feel like I've learned so much about the customer success role. It was one I didn't really know much about before, but I, as well as the rest of the community, has a better understanding and now know what it takes to land a role in customer success. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone who came out and attended today. For follow-ups, some of the links that Megan has shared today will be sent out in the email. If you registered through Eventbrite and you're here right now in Zoom, you will be getting an email with more information around today's webinar, as well as a little bit of information about TBC, and if you're not a member, how you can become a member. But as we're going to go ahead and close out for today's session, it was really great to be able to spend time with you all, even in this digital space and in our new world. It's been a really great time, and I hope everyone stays safe and are able to find some peace during this time. And let's all stay connected.
Thank you so much.